Sorry, it took me a while to get over here.
Oh, you're fine. All right, can everybody hear me okay in this room? All right. This is microphone? No, I don't think it works. Okay, that's fine. And Jeff, can you hear me in the back? Huh?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right, so my talk, can cloud equal security? The equal is because I am a developer. So that's why I had to put that in here. And when I'm going to be talking about the cloud, I'm not going to be talking about things like Dropbox or file sharing services. I'm talking about actually moving your enterprise hardware or your enterprise software into a cloud provider to host it there, to host your hard drives, your SharePoint, your email servers, all that in the cloud, and how you can do that securely. Some trade-offs with the risk associated with that. What do you lose? What do you gain? All that. So, before we get started too far, if you have a question, pipe up, raise your hand, just let me know. I've geared this talk to be decently short so I don't lose anybody's attention after about like 30 minutes. But please raise your hand if you have a question. If it's going to be answered in a few slides, Jeff already has a question. I might just say, hold up and just wait for another slide. So, the goals that I'm going to have for this presentation is to educate everyone as much as I can on some of the security topics of the cloud. Also, if you want to, I want to help this talk help you move to the cloud. I know it's a big word, everybody's using it a bunch for all kinds of different services. After this talk, I want you to have some knowledge that if you want to move to the cloud, this is going to help you get to this cloud, to the cloud. Also, there's going to be a link of this presentation at the end for you to write down. Also, aligning security goals to cloud development. Development inside the cloud is different than the enterprise. Has anyone heard of like some of the startups that use cloud? Reddit, Netflix, I guess Netflix really isn't a startup. Pinterest. Come on, interactive. All right, so some of the fun facts is Pinterest, during the day, they're only running a couple servers. Like, I think they said like under 10 servers during the day. At night, they're running like 100 to 200 servers in the cloud. The traditional enterprise approach to that would be, I need 200 servers all the time. But those servers are going to sit idle during the day. So aligning security goals to cloud development so that all that meshes together is really beneficial for everybody. So let's get started. What is a cloud? So I have two pictures here. One's a cloud, one's a data center. From a physical standpoint, they're pretty much the same. You have a lot of the features you have in your traditional data center. In the cloud, you lose some of them, like devices, pass-through Ethernet devices. You're not going to have those in the cloud because you can't rack them in your cloud provider. But they're pretty much exactly the same. So how is the cloud different now? Instead of people, you can have scripts to work with the cloud. Everyone probably knows we don't type well. We can mistype something, and that includes firewall rules. If you script your rules, they're the same over and over and over again. Unlimited resources, this kind of goes to like a business risk standpoint. If you were Pinterest and you bought 10 servers and you needed 200 at night, what's going to happen? You're going to get the fail whale. That's what's going to happen. So that's a business risk. Downgrade, upgrades, no big deal. That's a financial risk. Whoa, this podium was not stable. I think the whole thing is tipped. Downgrade, upgrades. You start a new project, you buy a bunch of servers, rack in your servers, you spec it, I'm going to need 2 servers, I'm going to need 3 terabytes of disk space, half a terabyte of RAM for this database server, you turn it on, first couple of weeks, send that 3% CPU, idle disk. You're stuck with it. But in the cloud, you can downgrade that to reduce your financial risk. And hourly pricing, because that's how everything works in the cloud. Not, monthly leases. So, security topics. What does a cloud have? A public cloud is a paradigm shift for the entire IT industry, from development, security, financial, the entire department and company as itself is affected by a public cloud if you go to a public cloud. Traditional IT can work in the cloud. You can get some benefits from that. Some of the quick immediate benefits, who here has, or knows, let me say, who here has a friend that knows that they have a single server their entire business runs on, and it's in their office? Can anybody raise your hand? Okay, couple little maybe me. I know a guy in Chicago who runs a real estate agency like that for some of his documents. Let's say flooding, that crazy windstorm we had a couple years ago, all those could have knocked out a server and killed it. In a public cloud, you're a sign-up process away from having a multi-data center setup for all your servers. Cloud-only companies are not traditional. And Pinterest, Netflix, all those are perfect examples of it. If they were traditional, it would be really hard for them to operate as the business that they currently are. You know, this is not a bad thing to have. Also in the cloud, best practices for the cloud, host-based. I know, security standpoint, probably scary for some people. That's the best practice because you own the host. I think Godzilla's that way. You own the host. That's it. There's a certain handoff point that you control, and if you're going to go from 5 servers to 100 servers, how are you going to scale your firewalls? How are you going to scale your web application filtering, your IDS? How is that going to work? They have to scale with your servers. They have to be on the servers in most cases. But we can talk about some of those more. I just want to get that out to start with. Questions so far? We good? Okay. Antivirus has been host-based for a while. I think this is a good kind of like, hey, we've been doing this for a while. It's okay. Also, I'm a developer. I want to point that out again. So I know that sometimes I'm more developer than security. Do I have a firewall? Yep, sure do. It isn't a traditional firewall. In some cloud providers, public cloud providers, they have hypervisor firewalls, they have host-based firewalls, and they have some tunneling you can do to route to a firewall instance, and then some providers will actually let you rack a firewall in there that you kind of route over your public cloud into it and route back. It's kind of weird. But it all depends on your provider. Talk to your provider about that. I don't want to start getting into too many details about providers because I'm trying to be agnostic. So if you have any questions, just let me know. Do I have security awesomeness? Yes, you do. So I have. Who has one of these? Okay, a couple of hands. Okay. Some cloud providers will let you have a software-based two-factor authentication token. You can even buy a hardware-based two-factor authentication token. That's not mine, by the way. That's actually for my bank account. So hopefully no one has a password for the next 60 seconds. Also, temporary and action-level security policies. You know, think about Windows file system, what you have like read, write, delete, execute, full control. In the cloud, you can say, well, you can only put an object, and you can only put an object from this IP from this time frame, and you have to have these headers associated with it when you do it. Or you can only write objects. You can't get objects. You can't delete objects. You can only write objects. And on the server, I version everything anyway, so you can never overwrite something you wrote to. So think about real-time logging to, you know, an off-site logging cloud provider. If you have this write-once approach for your logging in real time, and you keep a version of it, somebody can't delete your log files because you always have them. They don't have permission to do that from this third-party system. Also, security policies for servers. Some cloud providers will let you give the server access to their services. You don't even have to pass around credentials. They have a credential on the server that rotates every 4 hours. You know, instant key rotation, awesome. And no one has to know the password. It just is on the server, there it is, go. Some will have firewall groups, so you can put a server in a web group, And you can say servers in the web group can talk to my database group. No, hey, I spun up another web server and it has this IP. Can you let this into the database? This is a perfect case for when you're trying to spin up a couple hundred servers. You don't have to talk to your firewall guys to do that. They've already approved that connection. All right, so comparing. I try to kind of make this list of what I've kind of seen talking to some people. I kind of work with some clients in Chicago too. So traditional like infrastructure, their first concerns are like, okay, who has access to everything? Where are my firewalls? Where's my logging? Also, I need to audit this because someone's going to come in and ask me, is everything good? And has someone gotten into your system you don't know about? In the cloud, everyone's first couple questions, all right, who has access to it? Who physically has access to it? How do I know that ninjas aren't going to come into that data center and steal hard drives? Actual legitimate question, by the way. Hypervisor, how do I know that hypervisor is secure? What are they using? Are there any ODA issues on it? Is someone going to basically come into a server, hijack the hypervisor, and then get to my server on the other side? Then you have firewalls, logging, auditing, legal, contracts. What's my contract? Can they break it? If they do break it, what are the repercussions of it? Financially, what am I stuck with? And cost. I was in some training, and there was a couple of people stuck on cost for a really long time. But in the traditional enterprise, if you need a server, you put in a request form and you're done with it, right? Everyone have that? There might be a manager approval for it. In the cloud, since everything's paid for use, no one gets that there's an upper limit for that pay per use. That's your maximum cost. You're not going to hit that. You're going to be much lower. But the reason why I did it this way too is you have also these concerns in traditional enterprise. Let's go back to that guy who has a single server in his office. So there's probably a front door, and then there's probably a closet door, right? Is the closet door locked? Front door is. Probably has a security system, door opens, someone gets into it. I had a buddy of mine who said that they broke into one office, crawled over the ceilings into another office, and since that office didn't have motion detectors, they just stole everything. So comparing physical security across both of them is important. The physical security in the cloud, M16s. Who here has a security guard at their office data center with M16s? Okay. We got one guy in the front that we won't name. So the fun joke I heard with physical access is have you heard of GovCloud, the sponsored cloud for government activities, and it's all ITAR compliant? So their M16s, one's in the chamber all the time. That's their safety. Like, that's kind of scary. Hypervisor, probably traditional enterprise, everyone's just like, VMware, Hyper-V, done. You're not really concerned about it because you have to have it. Legal, what if an employee comes in, starts working one day, has access to the servers, rips them out, and takes them home? What's your liability on that? That's company liability. Are you going to be able to sue that guy for a couple $1 million? Doubt it. You might be able to get his truck that he used to haul the equipment. That's about it. He's not going to be worth anything. You're still going to have that issue. Cost. You still have that issue. It's just hidden. You're not aware of the cost of your request, your database access, all of that, because it's hidden. That's not your job. As a developer for the cloud, it is my job to worry about cost because every action I do is build. But by build, I mean 4 million actions against one service is like $3. So I still have to worry about it. I can't have a crazy batch job, but it's not going to get that big. So, all right, what do you control? So infrastructure as a service. You're running your own operating system in the cloud. You have access, operating system and up. You control everything. Patching, that's you. Antivirus, that's you. If you want anything beyond what they provide for networking and firewalls, all you. Platform as a service, software as a service, that's them. You can define a couple of criteria for it. That's it. Some of the services out there, like the large block storage from Azure, Rackspace, Amazon, you basically have, I have these users have access to it. Here are the permissions. Here's the firewall I want to enforce. You're done. That's all you have access to. Well, that means they're controlling everything else. I'm pretty sure that's also where there's probably tons of Netflix movies too, so those seem to be pretty secure, not on BitTorrent yet. So when you think of the cloud, make sure to separate this out into these three columns. You know, you're going to have your infrastructure. That's going to be a spot that you really need to secure and apply your current processes into. Your platform and software as a service, you're limited. It's pretty much a go or no go. I vote go, but that's me. So cloud security jargon. I put this up here because everyone has a different term for all of this. So firewalls, you've got network ACLs and security groups in Amazon. Azure, it's just called a firewall. Microsoft got something right. Rackspace, they call it Rack Connect. I don't know how that actually translates into a firewall word, but they will actually let you have hardware that you can rack connect into your cloud. Authentication, Amazon, they'll do single sign-on and something called IAM. It's where basically you start granting users access into your services based on very explicit policies. You can even do temporary access for like, you can only have access for the next 30 minutes, done. Azure, they use live IDs, so that's it. Rackspace, custom user portal, pretty much generic. What are VMs called? So in Amazon Web Services, they're called an instance. In Azure, they're either VM or it's called websites. They're like a shared hosting model. In Rackspace, they're called cloud servers. So this is just when you're looking at them. This is all the jargon that you're going to see come across, and this is how this all relates back to each other. So how the hypervisors work in the cloud, or firewalls work in the cloud. You're going to control the top part where it says customer 1, 2, ... customer n. You get to define the security groups or firewall rules in the hypervisor. So when traffic comes in, it's going to hit the physical interface. It's going to hit a firewall driver. It's going to check and say, hey, this is going to customer so-and-so. Let me look up the rules, grab them, verify they're valid. If they're not, deny it. If they are valid, send them up to the instance. This means you don't have denies. If this is something you need for a firewall, the only way to get denies is to put a firewall somewhere else or put the firewall on the instance itself, and then you'll get all traffic. There hasn't been questions in a while. Am I going too fast? Questions? Good? Okay. I'm like drinking a can of cocaine or something like liars. Okay. Attack vector. Huh?
Can you go back one?
Yes.
On the, how does that affect a software deployed network where they're changing rules across multiple firewalls at one time? Are they able to change like the base instance, and is that affecting it, or before it deploys the instance, or how does that play?
So if you define a rule and apply it to multiple servers, as soon as you change that rule and say save, it's going to go out and update all these hypervisor firewall drivers and set them, and then they're going to start accepting that new traffic.
Okay, so is it, I'm just kind of throwing the word out there, is that defined as one of the new software defined networks? Or not?
You could call it that, because you could easily put this all in a configuration file and say go, and it can spin up the whole network, including its firewall rules. Does that help?
Yeah.
Okay. I feel like there's a whole lot of new terms coming out, and some of them kind of just, yeah. Attack vectors. I have cited this, so I'm not stealing it. The 2013 data breach investigation by Verizon. So how is the cloud different with some of these attack vectors? You know, you've got tampering, spyware backdoor, use of stolen credentials, RAM scraper, unapproved hardware. Well, for the cloud, tampering is going to be really difficult with your cloud servers. That's going to be some sort of electronic tampering, not a physical tampering, because I don't even know where my cloud servers are. I can't even get into the data center as a customer to physically touch them. RAM scraper, that's your hypervisor protecting that. You're a hypervisor in your traditional IT environment is protecting it. The hypervisor in the cloud is protecting it. Use of stolen credentials, I got nothing on that. Unless you're using Twofactor, but we should all probably be using Twofactor. So SQL injection down at the bottom, thankfully that number is declining. That's still going to be an issue, but that's app security, not anything that a cloud provider can provide to you. But how does the cloud change some of those attacks? In the cloud, servers can run for hours, not years. Who here has a server that's ran for like 3 or 4 years? Pretty much everyone's like, yeah, me too. I had a server run for like a month and I shut it off, and then I started a new one. You can run I was doing a test to automate some installations. I spun it up, hit port 80, hey, that worked, killed it. It had a shelf life of under an hour. You know, if you properly protect that from the get-go, use a good standard image, it only lives for about an hour, and you shut it off, that's a pretty small attack window. You know, how's someone going to find that, find a vulnerability, and get into it if you use the firewall? Yeah, if you don't use a firewall and go serve in the cloud, it's like 4 minutes. You can script installations. You don't need admins to log in and do anything. You know, if you're deploying a new software package, does someone have to log in? Probably. There's some tools that fix that. If you're upgrading software like your website, someone can push files to it, or you can just drop the server and spin up a new one. If that server had a problem, just drop it, start a new one. Faster audits. How long does it take someone to get a firewall rules from all their firewalls across their company? Can anyone give me a number? Does anyone want to give me a number? Hours, days, months, yearly audit? No one? In the cloud, you just basically run a command and you get a history, or not a history, a list of all your firewalls. What ports are open, from and to where, done. You can just script these to run every hour if you wanted to. Think about that. Like, if you're like, find me a server that has all open ports, how long would that take in your traditional enterprise environment? How long would that take in the cloud? This could help you protect your servers faster. I didn't cite this, my bad. Also from the Verizon Day Breach, percent of breaches that remain undiscovered for months or more. That's on the rise. That's not good. But if you're adding and dropping servers from a gold image that's known to be good and doesn't have a breach, you could have an issue where someone gets into the server and they're only in it for a couple hours. You're not keeping that server around for years, 5, 6, 7 years. It's just done. Clean up. Shut off. Start a new one. Don't worry about trying to format the hard drive, reinstall an operating system. Nope. Drop it. So I'm going to tie some business risk into this too. I've got 2 good quotes on this. Keeping your enterprise environment internal, it's still a risk. Doing business is still a risk. So calculating the risk of you in the cloud, you're not at 0. Failed projects spend capital month to month. Who here has bought a bunch of servers and then the project fails and they don't use them anymore? Anyone brave enough to raise their hand? A couple head nods. Large companies suffer this too. Sometimes this is even in the SEC reports that I have to file. Unexpected growth and low growth is also a risk. If you buy 5 servers, launch a product, suddenly it shows up on Reddit and you get massive traffic and then suddenly your website goes down, you lost revenue. Good quote from Jeff over at Amazon, the Jeff. If you decide that you're going to only do the things that you know you're going to work, you're going to leave a lot of opportunity on the table. If you were a business and you only did the things that you knew that was going to work, so does your competitor. And that's not a good business model. Traditional IT, we know things are going to work because those are the safe bets. In the cloud, if it doesn't work, just shut it off. So, business risk part 2, I found this quote yesterday, so I had to shove it in here. There's no way to exactly estimate how many servers we need. We literally bought thousands of them and all the equipment and networks to go with it. If you have 8,000 servers and 1,600 users, how could you ever have get to cash flow positive? So Steve Perlman wrote this, CEO of OnLive at the time. Anybody remember what happened to OnLive? Bankruptcy. So they couldn't go to the cloud because the cloud didn't exist for this platform. It does now. If they were in the cloud, their financial aspects of their business could have been cash flow positive. So, I actually run pretty good on time. Again, questions, just let me know. I'm getting ready close to hit the 30-minute mark, so I'll have time again.
You're talking about Pinterest too. So how do they scale based on traffic?
Yes. Most of the cloud providers will give you metrics and even notify you, or they'll have a system in place that you say, when my requests take longer than a second, spin up a server. And I only want to spin up a maximum of 18 servers. Every time it spins it up, send me a notification, let me know that you're basically costing me more money for this. You can also do other metrics like CPU usage, RAM. You can even inject custom metrics into their software to base your decisions on. And then even like health checks, if one of your servers goes down, it'll just drop it and spin up a new one for you automatically.
What are some of the pricing models? Do they charge by like DAS and servers?
Everyone is different. Azure will actually charge by the minute now for compute time. And that's just straight up, I have given you a CPU and some memory. Disk usage is gigabytes a month, but it's also prorated. So if you only use that gigabyte for like the first 3 hours and you're done, it's prorated across the month. And then network traffic, internal, it's free for most cloud providers. You pay for outgoing, you don't pay for ingoing. And then for their attached SAN offerings, they all call them something different. They have different levels or tiers of offerings for speed, and like some will offer SSDs, some will offer just traditional disk. Some will offer dedicated IOPS on those as well, and you pay for each one of those. And then it's all, by the month, but again, prorated back to. Okay. So conclusion, I'm going to start telling you some fun security things to do to make your cloud better if you choose to go to the cloud. So how can I make it secure? This is also your chance to reset your processes. Does anyone want just a nod if it takes more than a month to get a server in their environment? I got a couple nods. Okay. If you have an automated change control process, sends an email to your manager, he clicks a button, bam, you have a server in an hour. How awesome would that be? Automate everything. Everything in the cloud is, an API call. Get your developers to write you scripts, use tooling to do it. It's all there for you. Encryption. We should be encrypting everything. Drives, all that. Talk about the guy with the server in his closet in that small business. I bet you he doesn't have disk-based encryption. That's fine, it's no big deal. Well, put it in the cloud and it's like, well, hey, I got shared hard drives. How do I know they're not getting anything? You should be encrypting anyway. It's good practice. Yeah.
So the guy with the closet server, he's using his nephew for IT, right? Or,
yes.
Or his next door neighbor or something. So this might be a little bit intimidating. So do the cloud service providers work with the next door neighbor to help this guy transition? Because the neighbor doesn't know anything about cloud or the nephew. So do they have enough technical support in order to help these people migrate to the cloud? Is that part of the services they offer?
It can be. You pay extra for that, of course. You can either go no support and they'll just kind of maintain service level with everything, or you can pay so much a month and you can actually start getting people on chat, on IM. But a lot of them have a very simple tutorial or video process to basically say, you want a Windows server, here's how you do it, click a button, here's an IP, remote into it, you have everything you need.
Can you avail them for like peer review of what you've done and everything?
Yeah. Yeah, some of them do architecture consulting, and some of them even have like automated best practice guidance. So if they see you just have that one server up there, they're going to throw a warning and say, hey, you probably need to start thinking about DR. You've got a couple other sites you should do this to. That's a business decision if they want to pay that. And then a lot of them will have like white papers, fun pictures, all that too to really help out. When I started like 3 years ago, I knew like nothing about the cloud, just networking, server admin background. Was able to get it up and running in pretty much a weekend. So, and it really helped out too when I told the person, hey, we're going to try this out and it's going to cost you $6. Are you okay with this? And he was like, sure, it can cost $12. I was like, okay, it's going to cost $12 now. Yeah. Yes.
What about software-based encryption?
I'm on the next slide for that one. Okay. Before we get to the encryption part, SSL, use it for everything. Internal web service calls, all that. They make it easy and available for you. You should probably be doing it anyway. If you have any like HTTP traffic internally in your network, that's a risk that someone can just sniff and start getting data. If they break in, start sniffing traffic, done. Tooling, custom, or some software as a service, there's plenty of providers out there that will do some mix of that for you. Also, your developers can be handy. Have them sit with the server admin, do a little awkward peer programming, and they can start writing scripts. I've got a script that will shut an instance down, clone the root volume, increase the size of it, boot the instance back up, done. It's a command line. You won't find it online, I'm sorry. It's not on GitHub, it should be. But you can pretty much script anything you want. They even have PowerShell scripts, bash scripts, command line scripts, anything.
So if you wanted like a Oracle database, SQL Server database, can you contact that big cloud provider and they would have those negotiated relationships with those vendors?
Oracle, I'm not 100% sure on. I think you can bring your own license for Oracle, and I think there's a small version, like a not enterprise version of Oracle you can spin up. But yeah, MySQL, SQL Server, that's actually what I was using for 3 years.
So you can get out of that vendor management a little bit and just go to the cloud provider and let them deal with all that.
Yeah, and it's even like by the hour. So think about paying for a SQL Server for only the times you need it. If you only need it 8 hours a day, all right, turn it on for 8 hours, done. You don't have to pay that, what is it, like 25 to 5,000 a pop a CPU or something. So they handle it all for you, look it up. They've got the pricing, Windows pricing, Red Hat pricing, all that. It's all available. Click a button, you don't have to go talk to the vendor and negotiate with it. You can even prepay for like a year's worth of, or 3 of service, and they'll actually give you a lower rate for that too. Okay. File integrity monitoring. This gets really simple in the cloud. I've got a slide for this. It's a workflow for that in kind of an automated fashion. But yeah, that's just my little notes to myself. Encryption. Open source tools to encrypt drives. There's even some commercial tools that actually encrypt the entire VM in the cloud. So when that VM spins up, it's got to contact the server, get a key, and then encrypt the entire, or decrypt the entire drive. So if it's sitting in a shared pool of drives, fully encrypted. Providers will even provide some encryption as well for their block storage. If you want to trust them, you can send data to them. They'll encrypt it with a dual key system, and all that physically lives on separate boxes. So they have to compromise at least 3 servers to even get your key before they can, and then they have to find out where your data lives. The cloud providers will some of them told me that the people who know where the drives are that contains your data, they don't have physical access into the building to actually touch it. So they keep that separate. So if you're on the phone and someone's like, oh yeah, your hard drive, here it is, here's a problem, it's dead. Well, there's another guy that has access to it that got an alert that says this hard drive's dead, he's going to pull it, zap it a couple times, I think there's a magnet in there somewhere, and then an industrial shredder. I really want to see that industrial shredder though. Key point about encryption, make sure that whatever you choose for encryption can be scripted. If you choose some encryption that requires some human intervention, you're not going to be able to scale up and down like all those non-traditional cloud companies. You need to keep that in mind for any product you choose. Even if you choose a firewall product, you need to make sure that it has some sort of scripting capabilities as well. Did I answer your encryption questions? Okay. I've got some people that you might want to check out, but I'm not going to talk about it now because I'm trying to get agnostic. File integrity monitoring workflow. I really try to fill the slide out as much as possible. Create a gold image. Take their image. You can bring your own. If you bring your own, though, you lose their volume licensing deal. So take their image, apply your patches to it, bring it up to speed every, third Thursday of the month, apply Windows patches to it. Put your antivirus, put any sort of logging you want to put on it, put it all in there and save it. You can save it as a private image for yourself. They will keep a record that that image came from one of theirs. You'll still get the pricing off of that. So you'll have to renegotiate pricing if you customize that operating system image. So shut it down, make it a gold image. Patching. Is nightmare patching for anybody? Okay, I gotta laugh, so yes. I gotta smile at a couple people. Patching for people who are like all in the cloud, they bring up however many servers they have over here with the old software that's not patched. They'll bring them up over here, switch all traffic to it, verify it's good, kill those servers. Done. You can basically patch in the middle of the day. There's a patch guy that has to like wake up at 3 a.m. Yeah. Is anyone in this room actually that guy that has to wake up at 3 a.m.? Maybe? Okay. Your life could be so much easier. Or that person. But again, you have to automate everything. Traditional IT can work in the cloud, but if you really want to take advantage of all this, you've got to automate it. So the cloud API, you can script firewall updates. That means you can audit the firewall updates. Who here has a change control process that's like a Word document? SharePoint site, anybody? Okay, a couple people. Think about it, if you had a change control process your devs or you paid someone to make, that could look and say, well, I had all these firewall changes, and this is what I currently have. Send an email to our incident response if there's a difference between these two. Probably a lot of people don't have that right now. In the cloud with their API, you can do that. You can do it every hour. You can do it every 30 minutes. Someone breaks in, steals some credentials, and starts opening firewalls up everywhere. Figure it out. Shut that account down. You could do it all in an automated fashion. You could have some botnet of your own control your systems to basically make sure that no one's trying to take it over. Botnet's probably a bad word. I shouldn't use that word. It's like a white hat, hot hat. It'll be fine. Suspect servers. Suspect servers, if you have them, you probably try to quarantine them, try to clean them. I've been at a small business that basically just runs a couple of antivirus scans, reboots, deletes files, and is like, hey, I hope everything's fine. By the way, that business doesn't exist anymore. You can basically, if you have a server that's suspect, and send out weird traffic to unknown IPs, you don't know what's going on. Strip it of all IPs, run a firewall rule, deny everything, start a script, replace it. You can basically shut that server down, replace it with a good working server, problem solved. Then you can begin your investigation. You can move it to a private subnet that doesn't have access to anything. You can, or the only one that can RDP into it. If someone comes out with some ODA issue and just starts owning every server, that's just a fun cat and mouse game. You just keep replacing them, replacing them, replacing them, replacing them. Traditional IT, you just have to shut them all off.
Okay, so you're saying
spawn the gold image or whatever, what about the data that's there? So what if it was running MySQL and it's stored on the Elastic Block Storage, right? What if the infection was on the Elastic Block Storage?
That's a good one. If the infection is inside your MySQL files, ouch. If the infection is on a file that happens to be on the Elastic Block Storage next to the MySQL files, when you spin up that gold image, you can do a restore of the backup, or you can just point it at that database-only drive, and like it would still have to be executed. And since it's sitting there, it's just cold. And then hopefully your antivirus will start picking up and clean it. So that's a good one. Yeah, backups are still way super important in all of this. Definitely in that case, a cluster would be really handy too. So if someone owns one of the database servers, drop it, replace it, spin it up. Hopefully you have a couple in your cluster. So that's good. Okay. Question? Yeah.
So what capabilities do you have for identifying these issues? I mean, you have traditional IDS capabilities.
You do if you provide them. So when selecting an IDS or a WAF, you want to make sure that you don't limit yourself, so that you can basically put an IDS and WAF in front of every single one of your outward-facing web servers, so that you would have that same protection.
So you have it at a network level or a host level?
It would be you can have it at the host that also hosts your website, or if you find a provider that has an image that has that built in, that's basically like a pass-through that you can deploy in a cloud system. You can have it go from your load balancer to your IDS host to your web server, and they all are separate instances. Did that answer your question? Okay. I wish there was like a whiteboard, because that would be a really good one to whiteboard out. So, questions?
You know what would be interesting or useful to me is all these various controls you're talking about, and to be able to show the different cloud providers, which ones, because I'm sure they're not every cloud provider is going to have every one of these controls.
Right. Yeah, that's a really long list. But thankfully, we have the whole day to talk about that. This can all be automated. Also going to go into a couple of steps that I think will be handy from some of the cloud training I've been into. If you want to move to the cloud, start identifying your pain points. Super simple things to find, and probably like your boss would love you. Backups, tape backups. Some of the cloud providers provide a penny a gig a month with 11 nines of durability for your backups. You know, who here pays way more than that for tapes? Plus, if you automate it, you basically be like, hey boss, I went to the security conference. I can save the company X. Well, you're going to go to a couple more security conferences. Some of them even have a SharePoint template. Just click a button, bam, you get a SharePoint farm. Form a migration plan, and every step of the way say, how can I encrypt this? Create a new team if you want to. Put everybody in the same room so that with the cloud, if you want to go full cloud, you're going to need everybody to talk to each other. It's kind of the DevOps mentality, but you need to throw security in there. So someone says, hey, I want to put this on here. Security's like, hey, you should encrypt it. All right, well, I'm going to use this tool. Is it good? Yep, it's good. Encrypt it. Done. You can create.
I was thinking it'd be maybe interesting to start with like dev and test, because you have a work environment where they're only working for part of the day, so you can save on that. You don't have to have test servers spun up if you're not in a testing cycle. So then you can kind of learn without, putting your production environment out there early on.
Oh yeah, definitely. That would be perfect. Plus, you only have to pay for what, the 8 hours they're working, potentially. Yeah, that's a perfect. And with some of the cloud providers, you can do an IPsec VPN tunnel to it's kind of like a private cloud in their public cloud, so it's all 10.172.192 IP addresses. And you can say, that has no outbound internet access unless it funnels back through me. So at that point, the only thing you should hopefully be concerned with is encryption of your drives at that point. And the point down here at the bottom, sign contracts. Some of the cloud providers have enterprise agreements beyond the traditional consumer agreements. So that'll help to sell it to the business, but also kind of reduce the risk on your side from a company standpoint.
Are there any legal terms that go with security assessments?
Do you have a
Over
say again?
are there any legal hurdles for security assessments?
For security assessments, you basically sign a form and you say, I would be doing a security test at this time from this IP address, and they go, okay, thanks for letting us know. If you don't do that, it's technically a breach of contract on your side. So they've got tools on their side to protect their systems, their consumers, and that's why they want to know that you're going to do that, so that they can basically shut off some alarms from that IP address and say, somebody's really going to try to attack this. There's also some other legal things like liability and such that probably we can get into, but probably don't have enough time. If you create a new system up here, DevTest is a perfect example. Tear it down, build it up. Doesn't work, kill it, start over. It's super easy. If you're traditional IT, that's somebody reformatting hard drives, and he's not going to like you or she. Prove security at each step. Do the penetration test. Make sure everything's working at that time. Verify that what they're saying is actually what you're seeing, including service level agreements. I know we've got monitoring like every minute for one of my external sites. It's that guy in Chicago again. Verifies everything's working. I've got like 2 more slides. Once you get through that hurdle of dev and test, make a simple proof of concept out in the public and see, is this going to work? Find a low-risk site that that if it's taken over, you can replace it really easy. Make it as small as possible. Find the bugs, fix them. This could be even application bugs from your application expecting a traditional enterprise to I didn't set the firewall rule up right. Then just wait it out, see how things kind of progress from there. Check your logs, and see what's happening. Start automating your auditing at that point. You have your public, you would have logs, you have firewall rules. You can correlate the logs to make sure they match the firewall rules and make sure you're not missing anything. Start launching more at that point. Last slide, awesomeness. It's just a good word for the talk. You can start reducing server wait time for your group, which would be great. If you start having those like automatic security practices, they're just going to keep flowing into server after server after server. And then if you start automating the auditing and other pieces, you're going to start getting alerts whenever there's something weird and fishy. Think about that like film. You suddenly have 3 or 4 servers that get triggered by a film alert that no one's logged into because they don't need to log into it. Hey, I have a problem. Somebody needs to look at it. Idle servers are shut off. Dev test environment. Everyone goes home. Shut it off. You don't need it. Lower excess capacity decreases business financial risk. This is where capital expenses and operating expenses come in. I'm also a business major, so this is why that kind of comes in. If you basically look at your server farm and they're all idle about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, you're basically having excess capacity at that point. You can't really plan for that in the enterprise. And at product launches, you can't really plan for it then either. So, any other questions? Presentation link is right there. That is case sensitive, by the way. And any questions, you can just message me up on Twitter. I'll be around on the conference, and if anybody just wants to come up and talk, I've got some brochures too that kind of show some diagrams if anybody wants those. So, yeah, questions, just let me know. You got quiet again. I put a QR code up last year on my presentation, and like 3 people scanned it, so I just figured I'd put the QR on this time. So, yeah.
You feel the cloud environment becomes a big target by an agency company.
nobody's wanting to look at me as far as there's no value as far as we as an individual. Because if I'm in that cloud environment, you build a cloud environment to attack the world.
I have heard that here, and there's a graphic that we're going to put together that in the cloud, their number of attacks, this is a survey across their customers, was reduced from the number of attacks they received from on-premise equipment. So, yes, you're kind of humbled in there with everybody else, but it's still a bunch of IP addresses, DNS names, all that stuff. You know, if I want to attack you for hypervisor exploit, there are 300,000 servers